I'm going to now hand over to our first presenters. So we have a sort of double team of Peter Smith and Stephane Mery, who are partners at EverQuest Capital Partners.
Thanks, Brian. Very nice to meet everyone. But it's a great pleasure to present EverQuest to you today. As we all know, the world has moved from a happy globalization to a war economy in the past few years, making all countries desperate to control their supply chain bottleneck. And that's why we created EverQuest, to invest into this massive transformation and help reindustrialize the UK. So what makes us unique? So number one, we are a very experienced team. Peter and I have been working at Beringia, Maven. Beforehand, I was the CEO of BBSF. All of these have been very successful funds, managing VCT money and EIS money. We are currently managing an EIS fund as well as the CPI Evergreen Fund. I'll explain what it is later. We do invest in what we call the Deep MakeTech. So all the technologies, whether it's processes, material design, which are to make things. And obviously all of these technologies are core to our aim of fostering the UK reindustrialization. We've got an exclusive partnership with a very large research corporation called CPI. And you'll see later in the presentation how important that is, because with that deal in place, we can invest into an off-market pool of extremely interesting companies. And we all know that EIS have been plagued in the past by the fact that investors have been sitting on companies for a very long time, much more than the proverbial 3 to 5 years. So when we invest in companies, we put the exit horizon at the core of our investment strategy so that we don't sit on these companies forever. So I'm going to go through every member of the team. Peter and I have created the company. So I was the CEO of a seed fund called BBSF, which was investing into the life science sector before becoming a partner at Beringia. Peter was working at Maven, working on the VCTs there. Together, we've got a cumulative exit of well over $1 billion, and we don't sit on companies very long. I'm not going to go through the rest of the team, but Frank Miller is the CEO of CPI and seat of our investment committee, illustrating how CPI takes this partnership seriously. So what Deep MakeTech? It's basically all the technologies that make things faster, cheaper, stronger, less energy demanding, more sustainable. All of these are critical to reindustrialize the country, because if you do the same thing as what the Chinese are doing, you never stand a chance. We need to do things differently. That transformation of the supply chain goes across all sectors. We're not talking about small things here. Changing the supply chain can completely transform a whole industry. Think of Tesla, for instance. They haven't invented electric cars, but what they've done is to transform the battery supply chain. And that was enough to really transform the whole industry. ASML, biggest technology company in Europe, they haven't invented a strong UV light to engrave computer chips. What they've done is to create the supply chain to be able to engineer those technologies. Moderna, unfortunately, we all know about the COVID-19 vaccine. They haven't invented the messenger RNA. They've invented ways to stabilize those, making their technology vaccine effectively. So transforming the supply chain can really transform a full industry. That's the kind of companies we want to invest in. Why now? Why us? Well, as I said, we are moving into a war economy now where bringing repatriating technologies and manufacturing, the supply chain technologies is critical. We see a lot of new technologies coming out of universities fueled by AI. And why us? Because very few investors are investing into that sector at the moment. It wasn't a flavor of the month 5, 6, 10 years ago, and it's only now that it's becoming really red hot. And our deal with CPI allows us to be an expert in this sector. As I said before, we've got a very down-to-earth investment strategy. We only invest in enabling technologies. We are not taking blue sky risk. Only when the value inflection point have been very precisely identified, and more importantly, where the exit outcome has been identified. When we invest in companies, we don't just listen to an exit strategy being, well, you know, there would be someone, if we are good, there will be someone wanting to buy us, or we'll go through an IPO. We identify precisely which bottleneck they are fulfilling, who would be interested in having those bottlenecks fulfilled, and what kind of companies are going to buy them. And we speak to these companies. And finally, we tend to invest into companies where we know we can add value, either through CPI or at least through our own capabilities. So I've been speaking about CPI a lot. CPI is one of the leading contract research organizations in the UK around industrial processes. They've got 700 scientists and engineers in their location. They're working with startup and very large companies. Their business model is to offer lab space, technology, and being able to help their customers access grant or access customers. Got about 80 million in revenues and tons of technologies on their site. So that gives you a little idea of the kind of site that they're operating. It's really massive. So for us, it means that we have access to a proprietary deal flow. About 200 companies. They're working with 200 companies a year. All of these are potential investee opportunity for us. We operate their evergreen fund, which means that that's a source of funding that co-invest with our EIS investee companies. The deal flow is very good because we got a very strong insight from CPI, because they would have worked with these companies, so we know exactly the strengths and weaknesses of the companies we are investing into. You can't buy that kind of due diligence. It's only by working with companies that you can really acquire an in-depth knowledge of those companies. That's why the deal flow is so good. And of course, working with the company down the line with CPI allows us to see the development of these companies faster, and we have a better input on the way these companies are developing. And last but not least, CPI has invested into EverQuest, which really shows their faith in us and ensure long-term stability. So to give you a few examples of companies we've invested into, I'm not going through all of them, but just a flavor. Decycle is a company which extract gold from PCB board, and that's extremely valuable. The quantity of gold that they are currently into the PCB board is almost as big as the gold that they are today in gold mine. Return on investment each time they are creating a plant is about 18 months. So it's really a company which goes through very high profitability very quickly. Qkine, they are disrupting the drug discovery industry. They manufacture high quality and cheap growth factors, which allow them to grow human tissues very quickly. And those tissues, called organoids, can be used for testing drugs in a much better way than animals are. So this company will have the power to disrupt that industry. And just to complete the list on Q5D, so what they do is to automatize the wiring of complex automotives like cars or plane, and they can make that using that technology, they can make those wiring about 10 times cheaper than what exists today. So again, they've got the power to disrupt the supply chain around automotive in a time where it's really key that we keep the automotive industry in Europe. So why us? Why investing in us? So we are a strong team investing into Deep MakeTech, which is absolutely critical in this war economy that we're entering into. We've got a very down-to-earth investment approach, which is tailor-made for EIS. We are supported by a leading company in that field, giving us a great deal flow. And indeed, we've got a lot of near-term investment opportunities. And we've got the best interest of the investors at heart.
Stephane, thank you very much for that presentation. And I believe Peter will be joining too now to help with the questions we've got in. And I guess to both of you, you mentioned there the strategic partnership with CPI, and it sounds very unique in the space and exciting in terms of from an investment perspective. How does that ultimately benefit the investor? Can you just go into a bit more detail on that?
Yeah, so as I was saying, the CPI doesn't just bring a deal flow, they bring a highly qualified deal flow because they would have worked with these companies. So for the investors, what it means is that when we invest in these companies, we've got a pool of companies that not only have been vouched by the people they've been working with, but on top of that, are benefiting from working with a company, CPI, which offer them a raft of technologies and capabilities to speed up the development and ultimately reach exit faster.
Yeah. And just to add to that, all or most of the deals that we're looking at are off market and they're all oversubscribed. Just to give you some example of that, we've got foothold within Scotland, across the north of England and also down south. So it's hugely beneficial from a deal flow perspective, but also entry point into the businesses because we can get lower valuations for investors, which will naturally, we hope, will deliver strong returns.
Excellent, thanks. One thing you both mentioned there, which is front and center of many investors' minds, is the exit piece. How do you ensure that the exit strategy is built into the business, the plans for these investee companies at an early stage?
So we have a very retrofitted approach to this. So basically, we are identifying the exit strategy and the exit acquirers. So trade sale is basically the only exit we are really focusing on. To be honest, IPOs are too fickle at the moment. And we go back to, we retro actively look at all the steps that needs to be achieved in order to reach that point. But of course, not only do we speak to the potential acquirers, but of course, CPI knowing inside out their area, they know all the players and they know all the dynamics within those markets as well. So we are having a bottom-up and a top-down approach to exit investigation.
Just to add to that, particularly if the business is addressing a bottleneck, typically the business will be super attractive to acquirers. And we hope when we're doing the analysis that it'll go for high value exit, not just your low multiples that you see across the market.
Cool, thank you. And then I guess finally, how has the portfolio performed to date since you've made the initial investments, and what metrics matter to you guys most in terms of the performance?
In terms of the performance, so we've invested in 8 companies from the Evergreen Fund in the past 3 years. So the portfolio is about 18 months old on average, and half of it has already tripled in value. So it's from a value standpoint, it had gone very well. We've also exited an investment that was made slightly before in a company called New Formix at 14x. So showing also the kind of return that we can achieve from these CPI-led investing companies.
Yeah, and just to add to that on how we deliver that, before we go into an investment, we look to create a plan with the management team, and then we also look to see what the key value milestones that they're going to hit. So then we can see the value inflection points and the value creation plan that they're going to deliver. And then we'll always address this with one of the chief technology officers at CPI to just see whether it's actually achievable. So it de-risks it from an investment standpoint. So we do our homework pretty rigorously, I would say.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And look, that's the end of the direct questions to you.
Thank you very much. I feel like I've gone through a lot there. And we look forward to seeing you some point in the near future.